What a day Thursday night was if you are a Minnesota sports fan. The Wild win. The Timberwolves win behind Anthony Edwards' 40-point game. Jared Allen gets elected into the Hall of Fame. Kevin O'Connell is selected as the Coach of the Year. Snoop Dogg makes Sam Darnold jokes on stage. It was just an incredible night last night if you're a Minnesota sports fan. Sometimes the stars align and things just go right. And there's some times where the stars couldn't be anywhere near each other and every single team loses and everything goes wrong. But last night was not one of those nights. This is a Minnesota Vikings podcast by Minnesota Tim. Thank you for making this podcast part of your day. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever you're listening, iHeartRadio, hit that follow button so this podcast shows up in your feed 6 times a week, Monday through Saturday. This show comes out. The Minnesota Vikings. What's new? What's hopping? What's hippin'? Well, Justin Jefferson made some interesting comments. Players do this Super Bowl tour because this is the time when their sponsors shine. Players get sponsored and are endorsed. And when they get endorsed, Super Bowl time is number one. They go on these radio tours. They go on these random interviews that they would never, ever, ever, ever go on, but they're forced to go on because they're sponsored by Old Spice or whatever the case may be, which means that we get more interviews, more things to react to and watch than we typically do throughout the season by players. And Justin Jefferson was interviewed by an outlet, and he shared a very interesting statement about the Minnesota Vikings quarterback room. Kevin O'Connell also shared an interesting statement about the Minnesota Vikings quarterback room following his win of NFL Coach of the Year. So let's dive into those. First, Justin Jefferson.
JJ definitely is, I feel like he's definitely going to get his shot and get his opportunity to do something and see where it goes. Just seeing how he was performing before he got injured, it was definitely looking, pretty good. And you have to give your first round pick an opportunity. That's a must. And that just goes with practice, being in training camp, being in OTAs. That position battle is going to happen, regardless. But having Sam being in there the whole season, this past year, having 14 wins, bringing us to the playoffs, that just doesn't happen overnight. He just doesn't just get a quarterback off the couch and he can just come and win 14 games for you. So, you definitely have to keep that in the back of your mind also. And, I feel like, we're going to bring Sam back. I'm not sure, though, so don't take my words for it. But, I think, it'll be good to have him back and to build and to see where it goes. But I definitely think JJ is going to have his opportunity. And, I don't know.
I don't know what
Justin Jefferson. I feel like we are going to bring Sam back. Oh, and then he caught himself. Says, I don't know. I don't know. But the way that I like to solve these mysteries is by asking questions, because questions reveal a lot. So the question that I want to ask the audience and those listening is this. Do you think the Minnesota Vikings organization, during Justin Jefferson's exit meeting after the season was over, included him in the conversation about the quarterback room? I would have to think yes. He is our best player on the team, and you would think that he would want to be included, at least in the early dialogue of what the expectations are this offseason and for next season. I think the last thing you want to do is keep your best player out on the sidelines and in the dark in this situation. So it feels like to me he is sharing some Minnesota Vikings intel on Sam Darnold and what the Minnesota Vikings might do or are trying to do this offseason. Regardless of how I feel about the situation, and my opinion was I don't think the Vikings are going to bring Sam Darnold back because of the cap space and McCarthy being a solidified starter, or at least a solid starter is what the Vikings think. And with that cap space, you can fill in several problems on the offensive line, in the secondary, running back room potentially, unless you explore that through the draft. So you bring Sam Darnold back, 2-year deal, 1-year deal, and that doesn't even include the fact that other teams might be trying to bring Darnold in for a multi-year, $100+ million contract. So that's factoring all of those things. Kevin O'Connell also made interesting statements to a series of reporters at NFL Honors last night. He says this, look, you guys know how I feel about Sam. He's a guy that we identified last year as somebody who could come in and be successful. And really, no matter where he was at before he arrived in his quarterback journey, it was about maximizing our time together. And I think we did that. And I think it was a very special year for Sam. And what that earned him is everybody in our league now thinks he's a bona fide, legitimate starting quarterback and can win a lot of football games. He won 14 of them in 2024. So he's earned the right to be a free agent, but we will continue to have ongoing dialogue and discussions with him and his representation. Okay, so this comment kind of goes a couple of different directions. The first direction that it goes is he is a guy that we identified last year as somebody who could come in and be successful. That kind of tells me that he wants Darnold back. But then his very next statement says, and really no matter where he was at before he arrived in his quarterback journey, it was about maximizing our time together. Now that sounds like he's going. This is an investigation into Sam Darnold and where he is going to go, because Jefferson makes it sound like he's coming back. O'Connell speaks out both sides of the mouth and says, sounds like he's coming back, and then we maximize our time together. He's going to be a free agent, so that makes it sound like they are not going to tag him. He's earned the right to be a free agent, but we'll continue to have dialogue and discussions with him and his representation. And then you consider J.J. McCarthy's thoughts, and another guy that you would think the Minnesota Vikings would let in on the ongoing plan in the quarterback room. McCarthy, all I can ask is for a fair opportunity. That's the one thing that I feel like everybody's given and is fundamental. When he said that, it makes it seem like he knows he is going to be battling a quarterback for the quarterback one spot next season, whether that be Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones. So these quotes and these interviews are fascinating because the players, their mood or tone is that Sam Darnold is going to be back. And Kevin O'Connell's tone is that we maximize his abilities. He has the right to be a free agent, which makes me think that the Vikings are not going to tag him. And it just is a fascinating series of quotes and answers by several players and a coach within the Minnesota Vikings organization. So this is an ongoing investigation within the Minnesota Vikings locker room and organization, because I still believe at the end of the day, Sam Darnold signs elsewhere and the Minnesota Vikings bring back J.J. McCarthy and Daniel Jones, and those two compete for the quarterback one spot. So that might be the intention behind McCarthy's quote, that I just want a fair shot at competing for the quarterback one spot. And maybe Daniel Jones is that competitor. But it's a fascinating story, an intriguing story that just continues to get hotter and hotter as the offseason approaches and as free agency comes up. And last thing about O'Connell's quote, it feels a little Kirk Cousins-y. Last year, end of season press conference, Kwesi, we intend to bring Kirk Cousins back, when that was not the intention at all. I mean, they offered him a deal, a year and a half, 2-year deal. But the Minnesota Vikings knew Kirk Cousins wouldn't sign that. So that's how kind of Kevin O'Connell's quote sounds. He's earned the right to be a free agent. We'll have dialogue and we'll have discussions with him and his representation. Kind of sounds like he's out the door. His final moment quote sounds like he's gone. Thank you for watching this episode and this investigation into Sam Darnold's whereabouts next season. Appreciate you all. Hit that subscribe button, and thank you for going on this podcasting journey with me.